Hey guys, welcome back to Collective Perspective. It's episode 74. Craig's going to kick it off with some interesting sales figures. Let me hear it.
Yes. So, fun fact for you all, as we talk a lot of Dreamcast lately, Seaman, 10th best-selling game on the Sega Dreamcast. It's a game that almost no one talks about unless you're a Dreamcast or Sega nerd. 399,342 copies sold worldwide. If you're ever wondering how bad Dreamcast games sold, that the 10th best-selling game on the console didn't even hit 500,000.
Today we are talking about games like that. Games that sometimes are like that, and sometimes they sell millions and still cost a lot of money. What are we talking about? We're talking about games that you probably shouldn't buy at their current going rate, and that is
Yes.
subjective. That was Craig's idea. I appreciate it. It was a good idea for an
Yeah,
episode.
games that we feel like are overpriced.
Right. So I'm just gonna start with some introductory thoughts here. I think that the NES, Super Nintendo, and Genesis specifically are I think they've matured. I think that those libraries have gotten so exploited, and everybody on YouTube knows what the hidden gems are. There aren't any hidden gems on those consoles anymore. Um, and so the games on those platforms, if they haven't been ported, they're not being bought so people can play them. I have this game Swordmaster on NES. It's like a $300 cartridge. It's an Activision published game. I mean, have you ever heard of this game?
Only because of you.
So Craig's never heard of this game, and it's not going down in price if it gets a port, right? Or if it comes to Nintendo Switch Online, that game is not going down in price because the people buying that game are not buying it to play it. So that's what I'm kind of getting at when I say mature. These consoles have had their time, and if you want to play Little Samson, you're not spending the money to fork over all the money for that cartridge in 2025. These games are easily emulated, and yeah, end of story. These are definitely collectors buying these games now, not the players. And I almost want to say that for N64 as well, but I don't think we're there yet. I think a lot of people, no one's buying Sculptor's Cut to play, but a lot of people are still buying a lot of N64 games to play for sure. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest contenders for this category, at least in the ones I wrote down, games that are gonna drop eventually are the ones that, one, are likely to be ported, and two, have a bunch of people wanting to play it, not just collect it. So I didn't put a bunch of games on here that the Spider-Man Xbox 360 titles. I think those kind of deserve to be the price they're at because they're exclusive and they had the license issue, right? They have sold probably hundreds of thousands of copies each, and they're also on PS3. But I don't feel like they should be, I don't know, $10-15. They're not. They're common, yes, but they're in demand and they're exclusive to their platforms. In terms of they're locked to those platforms and they're not going to be ported most likely. Any thoughts, Craig?
No, I agree with you. Stuff like that makes a little bit more sense than some of the other games we're going to talk about.
Well, you have 8, I think. I got 6.
9.
Okay. Well, Craig's a beast. Craig's a real collector, as we know. So kick us off here.
Yeah, so number one, right now, definitely a bit of recency with Sonic the Hedgehog 3, but I have Shadow the Hedgehog. On GameCube right now, it's around $112. Complete PS2 around $70. Xbox around $78. This game was pretty cheap for many, many years. Exploded more recently because of the release of Sonic 3 and the Shadow hype and everything else. The year of Shadow last year, Sonic Shadow Generations, all these kind of other different things I think culminated to the game going up in price. But it's a very common title. It's not a very well liked game. There's been a lot of revisions to history. I myself am a Shadow the Hedgehog believer. I've always liked that game, even though I know that it's not the best, but it is a childhood favorite of mine. And this is just a good example of recent events in other media influencing the price of a game due to different licenses across different media. I definitely think this one will end up going back down.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's just a weird time where it's in high demand, and yeah, I think that's a good. No one's gonna argue with that one. That one is gonna come down for sure. It's on 3 platforms, and it was
Three.
common on all three.
Exactly. You could find them almost any day of the week. It's just now if you find them at your local game store, they're going to be behind a glass case instead of on the shelf for you to grab.
Isn't
All
that
of a sudden.
sad?
I know. God, seeing Shadow the Hedgehog behind a glass case feels like the fall of a religion almost. It's brutal.
Let's talk about The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess, specifically the GameCube version. On Wii, this is a very inexpensive title, but on the GameCube, it is $150 complete in box, Craig.
Whew. Wild.
This version should not be this expensive. I know that a lot of people think that, oh, this game launched on both the GameCube and the Wii on, same week or whatever. So obviously this was the last GameCube game to come out. That's probably what caused this game to be high in demand for years. But that rumor is not true. We had games coming out, as I believe that Madden 08 was the last one, which came out in 07.
Doesn't that annoy you, by the way? I hate that it's always a year difference.
Why do you think this game is expensive?
I think it's, there's a Nintendo tax, and on top of that, there's a GameCube tax, because that's the cool system that everybody loves now. Everybody likes to pretend that, they grew up with the GameCube, they love the GameCube, even though it is one of the worst selling Nintendo consoles. It's always kind of funny how that works. But, yeah, I don't know. People, I think also, in terms of playability, they're going to not want motion controls for the most part. So I think that that's a deciding factor for people wanting it. I do believe that it definitely got printed and sold at a higher velocity on the Wii than the GameCube, but there's still plenty of GameCube games out there. And something interesting I noticed, when we were at the convention we went to in October, you and I saw so many copies of the GameCube version of Twilight Princess, and I saw no Wii copies. Not that that's super telling of anything or concrete information, but I just thought that was interesting. We went to a game convention and I didn't see it. I saw Twilight Princess on Wii maybe once at one booth, and I saw it on GameCube probably 20 times.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if we're ever going to have a Wii on fire phase. GameCube is on fire right now, but I can't fathom the Twilight Princess on Wii being more than a $20 game, right? It's so out there and available.
Yeah, and it it got Nintendo Select, so it was printed into the ground there too. So it's just super super widely available, especially on Wii, even compared to GameCube. So I don't know. I can't imagine because there's the GameCube version which people want, and then there's the Wii U version which people want because it's the HD remaster with some quality of life and different things, and then there's the Wii U version smack dab in the middle, and it's inarguably the worst version of the game. So I think that's always going to keep the price on it down because, a lot of Nintendo people and Nintendo collectors buy their games to play them for some reason, which is weird. I don't know why you'd play your games. But the least good version of the game is the Wii version. So I think that's always going to be pretty dirt cheap, probably.
I got my Wii March 2007 with Wii Sports, obviously, and I think that weekend your boy got Twilight Princess, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, I got that for Christmas 2006. Very very memorable. I remember playing a lot of Twilight Princess that morning and getting kind of annoyed because I felt like I was having Kingdom Hearts 2 flashbacks where you kind of do nothing for a while before the game really starts to become a game. But very fond memories of that game. Twilight Princess on the lower end of my favorite Zeldas, but I do still appreciate it.
So I do want to talk about the Wii U one, but I think both of these versions, truthfully, will drop when or if the Switch or Switch 2 gets a port. This is something that people have been clamoring for a decade or whatever. They want the Switch port. They want it. People want everything ported as always, but specifically, the Switch is just an incredible place to play Zelda, and the Twilight Princess and Wind Waker are missing, and 4 people bought a Wii U. So no one is going to buy the Wii U version, but there are people buying it for $100 That is without the amiibo, Craig.
Without the amiibo.
Totally not
Come
worth it.
on. Come on.
Totally not worth it, as I think it will drop when the time comes. But $130 with the amiibo, I'm going to call that one a totally buy it. That seems like it's only going to go up and up. That's a big box. That's a really cool big box. I think that one's only going up from here.
Yeah, that's valid for sure. You know what's interesting too? I feel like a lot of GameCube games that have been put on Switch in some way, like the Baten Kaitos games, the Pikmin games, stuff like that. The GameCube counterparts do seem to go down. Paper Mario Thousand Year Door especially. So that seems to be a trend I've noticed, is once a game goes from GameCube to Switch, the GameCube version does seem to go down in price a bit.
My favorite example of that is Baten Kaitos Origins. That one is straight down. It's insane. I didn't know that many people wanted to play that game. Mm-hmm. You know,
well, a lot of history. There's I believe that was also Monolith, right?
Yeah.
Who made the Xenoblade games. So
yeah, that's true.
So the big nerds are all about that shit.
Take us into your next one.
I'm the big nerds. All right, next one I have Pokemon Emerald. We always talk about Pokemon games being overpriced. Right now, Pokemon Emerald CIB is sitting at a crisp $5.90 on price charting. Every Pokemon game has sold many, 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 many copies. I think that this one is just so valuable not because you can't find a nice complete in-box copy any day of the week, because you totally can. I think it's just that this is probably, if you're a hardcore Pokemon fan, I'd say this is 99% of hardcore Pokemon fans' favorite Pokemon game. And I think that's always going to keep the price high. But I would definitely say that it's available enough to not feel like it's worth $590.
I'm looking at it. And you know what?
I mean, the market speaks for itself, I guess, because it is selling for that much. But I'm just like, I feel like it doesn't deserve that price tag for how available and relatively common it is, even complete in box.
This game is obviously in high demand, but we took these notes about a week ago. The game is currently $530, so I mean that just goes.
It's on
to
the
show
down. Buy it now.
That just goes to show just how much like condition matters with this game and completeness. Because
definitely
$60 in a week time is kind of hilarious, but
that's a big jump. Yeah.
Even the loose cartridge, $203 is ridiculous.
That's crazy.
This game, if we get on this Pokemon Presents on Thursday and people, there's this stupid rumor that maybe they're going to port these GBA games. Like, if that happens,
I could look like an idiot if this gets announced.
I could see this game going down, even CIB. But it's not going to go crashing down. No one should be holding their hopes that this CIB game is going to be, I don't know if it'll ever be under $300. Like, this is just something that everybody wants. Rayquaza's a cool freaking guy.
Yeah. One of the most iconic box arts on video games ever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good call. Good.
Yeah. Do I get why it's expensive? Yeah. Do I get why it's that expensive? No. It's kind of like my mindset.
Next up, tell me how you feel about this one, Persona 1. Let me tell you the price first.
Yeah, hit me.
Atlas and Persona right now, on fire. This game is $425 complete.
I don't know. I'd have to look, because it's been a long time since I've looked this game up to see how readily available it is. But Atlas games, especially in the 90s, famously low print, so I wouldn't be surprised if this didn't get a lot of copies printed. I don't know. What's your justification for it being overpriced? I'm curious.
That's a good point. I just think that because Atlas and Persona are both on fire, that this could come down. I'm not saying that this shouldn't be expensive. We know Atlas stuff up until, I don't know, the Wii was just low print, every single thing. On one hand, it's a pretty important game, and it deserves to hold value. On the other hand, this is the type of game that plummets upon being ported, so I was going to ask you, because I don't know anything about this franchise, would they release this? Would they ever remake it? Would they ever re-release it?
They've done a lot of fan polls over the years, and people have clamored for Persona 1 and 2 and 2 remakes. I believe that really reliable leaker from last year, Midori, who isn't around anymore because they wiped their online presence after being outed as, like, pretending to be a Japanese girl. That was wild. And it was just some white dude. Like doing like bad English or stuff on Twitter. It was crazy. But they got a lot of stuff right, and I believe that they did say that like Persona 4 was getting a remake, that Persona 1 and 2 were getting remakes of some kind, if I remember correctly. So it's definitely possible. But you know, I mean, even Persona 3 Reload came out last year, and I believe that Persona, all the older versions of Persona 3 are still, you know, not as Persona 3 Portable, I know, went down, but the original version of Persona 2 is actually, I think, either gone up or is as expensive as it once was. So, I don't know. It's hard because this Atlas collectors and Persona collectors are definitely a thing, and I can see that, you know, this game being the first in a, quite frankly, revolutionary and important series, and it definitely being on the lower side of a print run. I could see this staying expensive. Probably, I don't know. I mean, it's been at a slow climb for a very long time. You know, it's never really had a dip. It's just continuously gone up over the years. So, I don't know. I might have to disagree with you on this one being overpriced. I feel like it might be justified.
I think you've made some very good points. What is it? It's February right now. February last year, the game was $350. March last year was $325. So it's gone up a lot. Looks like it spiked in June of last year for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. I think when I bought it in like 2016 or 2017, I think it was like 160 when I got it. So it was even, you know, before, you know, most PlayStation 1 games, I don't think there's any over above 300 that long ago. And it's just continued to climb, so.
Well, let us know what you guys think in the comments. Take us to your next one.
Next one, I have, funnily enough, another Atlas title, Rule of Rose on the PS2. So this game, as of right now, floating around $635. I don't know. I mean, it's like, I feel like this game is just, this is definitely personal experience, but I've seen it way too many times for it to be like this is like a very uncommon game. I feel like I see it at almost every game store I go to. You know, when we went to the convention, we saw a bajillion copies of it there. It's one of those things you could buy on eBay any day of the week for good condition, complete. The soundtrack for it's rare, which is funny. I don't know where that came from, but there is a soundtrack that some people have along with there's copies. I don't know if it was a pre-order thing or it came bundled or what, but I don't know. I just, from personal experience, you know, it's an Atlas game. It's a horror game on PS2. Those are two big ups in terms of games that are desirable and valuable. But in my own personal experience, I feel like I've just seen this game, you know, everywhere all these years that I've been collecting, and I'm hard pressed to believe that it's, you know, more than uncommon, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we know it's not. I'm sure some sales data might be out there for this one, and you know, you talk about how many copies of Persona were printed on the PlayStation. It's probably a lot less than Rule of Rose. But, I mean, this one's got the YouTube thing where everybody talks about it. You know, give it 10 years. I hate to say 10 years, but 10 years down the road, this might be a different story. You know, people might have moved on. We see it with old games all the time. I'm not going to try to think of something right now, but this one could totally come down if you're patient.
Yeah, like this, Kuon, Haunting Grounds, like a lot of those PS2 expensive horror games, I don't see them retaining their value over a long period of time. I don't think they'll ever be cheap, but I don't think they'll always be like 500 plus range.
What in the world would you... I don't know anything about the gameplay of Rule of Rose, but the soundtrack of a horror game? What are you going to listen to? I mean...
just ambient screaming and bugs crawling on walls, probably. I don't know.
How good could the soundtrack be?
I don't know. Unless they got my boy John Carpenter making the music, I don't really know. But yeah, there is a very... It's funny because the soundtrack is definitely more rare than the game, and you could get the soundtrack for way cheaper than the game, which makes sense, but just kind of funny.
Next up, I'm going to talk about another GameCube game that is ridiculous. It's Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. And I don't have a lot to say about it other than it is Pokemon, and that's obviously what it has going for it. And it hasn't been ported. It is an exclusive game to 20-year-old hardware, so obviously, and it's in high demand. Like, that combination gives you a $150 price tag in the year 2025. But I think the instant that this and Coliseum come to NSO, the price is plummeting. Yeah. This is not your standard. This is not Pokemon Emerald. Pokemon Emerald is going to be expensive forever. Like we said, it might not be as expensive as it is right now, but it will always have value. This is not that. People just want to play this. People don't, when people are on Reddit looking at talking about, here's my Pokemon mainline series collection, they want the handheld titles, they want the cardboard, and they want the Switch games, all the mainline titles. Nobody really cares about these spin-offs. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
No, I think I agree. I've always been surprised at the high value of the GameCube games, especially since they both sold well enough to be labeled as either bestseller or player's choice.
Yeah.
So clearly there's a good amount of them out there. But yeah, I agree. If these ever get ported, they definitely will go down, and that falls in line with my theory. GameCube games are mostly expensive because of accessibility, not so much because of actual rarity or scarcity.
You know how crazy the Switch is for players? Like, this console has so much to play, from Skyrim to literally, like, you can play Skyward Sword on this thing. Like, there's so much stuff that has been ported to this freaking console. It is the ultimate machine. It is crazy.
It's a great one. It is a good video game console for sure. You know what else was a good video game console? The Dreamcast. My next game, I have listed the Dreamcast and GameCube version because it was eventually ported and had some extra trinkets added in. Sonic Adventure 2. So on Dreamcast, it's floating at a nice $212, and on GameCube, $98. This obviously also has a bit to do with the release of the Sonic the Hedgehog movie 3, because the of Shadow, and also the story of the movie is very heavily based on Sonic Adventure 2. But yeah, this game, the Dreamcast version especially, it's like it's one of the top 10 games that sold for the system as well. I believe I saw it was number 9, 500,000 copies total. From a little bit of research, I was able to see that it's an estimated 400,000-ish of those were North American sales, actually, because Sonic is just way more popular in America than ever was in Japan. So, not a scarce game by any means. But yeah, just another thing. It's like Shadow the Hedgehog, relation to another media release nearby. But yeah, I can't imagine this one retaining its value in any way. The games have always been popular, but $200 for Sonic Adventure 2 Dreamcast is very interesting, especially since that's the lesser version of the game. It's not like Sonic Adventure 1 where it's agreed that version is better than the GameCube version. It's the opposite. Everyone prefers Sonic Adventure 2 Paddle on the GameCube because of the added stuff in the Chow Garden and all that kind of, all those other little tweaks, the multiplayer, different things like that. So
the Dreamcast didn't have the Chow Garden?
It did, but it didn't have as many, it didn't have as many mini games, didn't have like the black market. It didn't have the designs of the hero and dark side worlds were a little different, so totally revamped Chow Garden essentially.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would expect. I mean, no one cares about First Prince. I do. No one cares about owning the original thing, as is evident by the comments on one of my recent videos, but. If everyone out there is just playing the game, why is the Dreamcast one more expensive? I think I made this argument on Discord, but yes, it's scarcer. It is more scarce, and it should be. It is objectively. I'm gonna say objective. Come at me. The Dreamcast one is objectively the more collectible one. I don't know why all of the people that are just buying it to play it would pay more for the Dreamcast than the GameCube one. It's odd to me. I don't know. Supply and demand, I suppose.
I suppose.
Another console that's not great. Oh, no, we didn't talk about a not great console. A console that's not great, the N64.
Whoa!
Conker's bad fur day. Specifically loose, I want to talk about. This game's $154 loose. I don't think
That's
that
bonkers.
is making
That's
any
bonkers.
sense. This game got ported on Xbox. I don't know what the differences are with the Live and Reloaded.
It's actually a remake, so it's pretty different.
Okay. Well, at the very least, I'll say it got ported to Xbox One and obviously Series X, and it's on Game Pass. So I don't know who in the world needs this. Loose specifically. If you're a collector, go get it CIB. If you're if you're buying this to play it for $150, that is a mistake.
You could actually get an Xbox One and a copy of Rare Replay probably for cheaper than a cartridge.
This game is objectively very cool because it is an M-rated game that, it was published by a company that was very closely tied to Nintendo, and obviously it's raunchy and it's hilarious. It's got the profanity. It's an interesting game for sure. Collectors can get it CIB. I don't understand the need for $150 loose. This game is very accessible if you just want to play it.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't really tell you why the cartridge is so much, because it is I mean, I guess if you have an Xbox, but I don't know. It's definitely a strange one because it's always been pricey-ish, but it's like never been a hard game to come by in any way. It's like many years ago, it was always like at least like a $60, $70, $80 game anyway, so it's always been a bit on the higher end, and I never knew why. I think it's just because the game is really well known for being an oddball N64 game. It's a very late release. It has all this inappropriate humor and different things, so I think it's kind of just the legacy that's keeping that price around more than anything.
$60 is like the number that I don't know, lives rent free in my head for that game. That's probably what it was valued at when I got mine. Mm-hmm. So yes, I am calling out the collectors for owning this loose. I own this loose, so I'm fake as well with you all.
You're a fake collector. All right, next for me. Another one we've talked about a couple times on the show, but Piglet's Big Game. It's worth bringing up again because right now it's still $81 on GameCube and $95 on PS2. It's so funny that it's hanging on somehow. We thought that it would come back down, and it has come back down quite a lot, but I thought it would have been more of like an actual like fall off opposed to the slow trickle back down, which is interesting. So
me too.
I don't know, man. And it's funny because every once in a while, I don't subscribe to r/game collecting because I have self-respect, but it still comes up on my Reddit homepage sometimes, and I'll see people post this game once in a while, and every time someone does, the top comments like, please stop posting about this. If you keep acknowledging it, the price isn't going to change.
He's not wrong.
And I think that's really funny. So, shout out to Piglet's Big Game. I say we shoot it back up to the moon, make it like the most expensive GameCube game. That'd be hilarious. Especially since your boy here sold his copy and he has to rebuy it.
I have a saved search. I've made a couple offers and been denied, but they're all gonna come down to my want price soon.
Like, just you wait.
Yeah, good
call.
I
guess we should say, if you don't know, for the people that aren't aware, Piglet's Big Game had a price explosion not earlier last year, but sometime last year because there was a bunch of Twitter videos going around about it. First, someone posted the soundtrack, and they were like, why does this sound like Lovecraftian horror in my Winnie the Pooh game? And then someone posted video of the actual gameplay, and it was like a haunted house level that looked like survival horror, which was funny. So it made the game blow up in price. And then I think people bought it and realized that was like one level in an entire game, and they're like, oh, this is lame. So they all started selling their copies again. So it went up in price because it was a meme, essentially. So
that is one of my favorite things that came out of 2024, honestly.
That's so funny.
I mean, even just like from just to study what the heck just happened, like how could a couple of tweets do that? The game was gone within like 48 hours.
Yeah, because I think you and I were talking about it. Like, yeah. I think we were like, oh, is something going to happen? And then, like, the next day you're like, bro, there's no copies on eBay. And I was like, you're joking.
I had to make a quick decision. I was like, all right, I'm selling mine. Screw it. It was missing the red card anyway.
I was going to say, you sold it at a high, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I sold it for $130.
That's so funny. And you'll probably buy it back for hopefully like $10, $20 at some point. So.
I'm not even holding my breath for that. But it might be one of the last like 5 or 10 GameCube games I buy now.
I think you should make it your goal to make it the last game on purpose.
That could be fun. Yeah.
That would be fun. Alright, what you got next?
This is an annoying one here. So, $105 can get you a lot of great things in this world. How many great Dreamcast games could you get from Capcom? Turbo
Like one.
Super Stunt Squad is what it could get you on the Wii U. The only people who want this are set collectors. It is the sculptor's cut of the Wii U, dare I say. Man, I hope that... No, don't quote me on that, please. But, I mean, essentially, it's a movie tie-in game that really no one cares about. I don't know or care if it's good.
If your favorite DreamWorks movie is Turbo, I don't want to associate with you.
I haven't seen it. I also haven't played the game. Here's what I think. People will stop going for the Wii U set. It's when people... let me see what I wrote here. I wrote something really good. Most Wii U set collectors are people who play their games. Do you believe that's true?
Yeah, that's probably valid.
I think there's a lot of NES set collectors, Super Nintendo, all kinds of set collectors that just put them on the shelf and never play them. If you're a Wii U set collector, you're probably the type of person that goes on Reddit and says, games are meant to be played, free it from its plastic coffin, nonsense like that.
Yeah, you probably actually test all your games and you buy them like some dork, too.
He's making a joke, but I test all my games, and I hope he's testing all of his games.
Usually.
The reason I bring this up is because this set has about 15-20 exclusives left, depending on when you're watching this. But it's not worth owning for people who play their games. People who play their games, they want the Funky Kong mode of Tropical Freeze. They want the deluxe version of Mario Kart 8, the deluxe version of New Super Mario Bros. U. Nobody wants the Wii U version. So if you play your games, you're not going to buy the Wii U set. Like, that's what I'm trying to say here. People who play their games want the best version, not the earliest print. Therefore, my closing statement, don't spend $105 on Turbo Stunt Squad. It has been over $100 since April of 2021, which you may remember as the great COVID spike. But for a second there in 2023, it did half in price. So I said that wrong. Let me pull this graph up for myself. But essentially, let me see what it was in COVID times. So it hit $100 April 2021. It went all the way up to $275 by 2022, October 2022. And since then, it has been down. So it is now barely at the $100 mark, and you can keep waiting. If you are a set collector buying Turbo Stunt Squad, or you are any type of collector buying this game for whatever stupid reason, just wait, please. That's my advice.
Yeah, one thing that I remember was really funny about collecting the Wii U set when I did back in the day is that I think about half the set was sealed by the time I was done, because most of it's just games like this that nobody wants to own or play or care about, and it was like old stock that stores couldn't get rid of. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, this rare, expensive game is almost always sealed. Like, you're actually it's going to be more uncommon to see an open copy.
I think
there's probably 10 people in the world that have seen whatever insert comes with that game, because every copy is sealed.
I think I wanted to put Devil's Third on this list first, but that game has come down a lot, as it should.
Mm-hmm. I remember seeing that game at GameStop when it came out, and I was like, oh, I heard this game's really bad, and then I put it back on the shelf.
All right.
So shout out to Wii U collectors. All 10,000 of you out there that are fighting over the 3,000 copies of Axiom Verge. Next up on my list, we have Tomodachi Life on the 3DS. This is at $122, which is interesting, because this is a very well-selling first-party Nintendo game, and is so well-selling that it has a Nintendo Selects version. So, absolutely no reason for this game to be so expensive. I feel like this one, I really couldn't say. I know there's a lot of YouTubers that have hyped this game up over the years, so that of course always sometimes inflates the price. And there's been a lot of begging for a Switch version of this game or a new version of this game. So I think a lot of people are delving back into the well of 3DS to get this game and play it, since it's the only version that's available. And in general, I think we're still recovering a bit from 3DS eShop closing. Since these games can't be bought digitally anymore. I don't know if this game will ever plummet in price, but I definitely know that it's super common and not worth $122. Like, common enough to where I got it for like $20 when I was going for the 3DS set. So,
yeah, I'm with you. I don't know a whole lot about this game, but the fact that it has Nintendo Selects is mind-blowing.
Yeah. There's thousands of copies, if I had to assume right now on eBay, if you were to just look it up. It's super widely available. Absolutely no reason for it to be $122.
Just to think about, like, cardboard games. Cardboard got thrown out in the 90s and the 80s. We all know that. Cartridges got thrown out before video games became so collectible. Nowadays, like, I'm going to say 90% of those Tamagotchi Lives survived. Like, they're still out there. Whatever they sold, maybe 85% of them are still available. It's just interesting. But supply and demand is always the answer.
It's always supply and demand.
My last one here is Deadpool. This game has had licensing issues where it got delisted. I was looking at Wikipedia or some website. It got delisted in like 2013, and it also got delisted in 2017. I'm guessing the second time was the remaster. So this game has 4 releases. It's Xbox 360 and PS3, and it's PS4 and Xbox One. Typically, I think games with licensing issues are worth the price. I mentioned the Spider-Man titles earlier, but this one makes this list for me specifically because it has been released on 4 freaking platforms, and I don't care how bad it's sold on all of the platforms. That's 4 different consoles where it probably sold hundreds of thousands of units each. I will say I didn't expect the 360 one to be as cheap as it was. This game had the movie release. I think that was last year. And then there was also the 360 store closing last year. This game is $33 right now. That is insanity. And the PS3 one is also only $42. Now, that's fine. It's a delisted game. I think those prices are fine. But the freaking Xbox One is $54. The PS4 is $86. I don't know that I can agree with that. It got remastered. I think I'm willing to bet the 360 one doesn't pop into your Xbox One and play. I'm willing to bet it's not backwards compatible. Obviously, the PS3 one is not going to work on the PS4. So there is that issue of accessibility where people just want the remastered version. I don't know. It is interesting, but I don't think $86 or $54 is what this game should be sitting at. I think there's been rumors that this might be ported once again, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think part of the licensing is that I think it was an Activision game, if I remember right. Between the disparity of that and Disney and stuff, I wonder if that's part of the issue. But I could definitely see Disney, trying to buy the rights to that game to publish it again, to re-release it. And I definitely think that would bring the price down, because I think the main reason it's expensive is just because it's delisted on everything. And, Deadpool's always kind of hot now. He's definitely become one of the most popular superheroes of all time over the last decade or so. So I don't know if the price is unjustified, but I definitely don't see it sustaining, especially if it does get a re-release. Because, if anything, Disney's actually pretty smart when it comes to, the accessibility of their licenses and video games. I mean, look at all the Star Wars stuff from past generations that they're constantly re-releasing now. They wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't successful and they weren't making money. So if they were to do that with video games that they are related to IP that they own, this would probably be a no-brainer for them because Deadpool is just always in the public eye now in terms of like what people think about with pop culture in general.
I think it's interesting. I don't think there was a Deadpool movie when this game came out.
No, it came out first.
This game came out at a weird time, and like according to the light googling I did, like the 360 and PS3 ones didn't sell crazy well. Still sold hundreds of thousands of copies, but I mean, it didn't blow anything out of the water, and no one was asking for a Deadpool game. The movie, obviously, people have all seen the movies now, but like before then, like the comics were going, but how big are comics in the year 2013? They weren't a thing. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I probably only knew one person in my life that was a legitimate Deadpool fan, like before the movies started coming out, like maybe one or two people. So those definitely elevated him onto another level. So interesting. All right, so that was your last one, I guess, huh? Since you're a slacker and you didn't have as many games as I did. So next up for me is going to be another 3DS game, Yokai Watch 2 Psychic Spectres. Yokai Watch 3 famously very expensive. And that game I actually do think it is kind of justified on its price because that game got one printing, it was in and out. Nintendo pretty much just sent it out to die in terms of physical allotments because whatever the lowest print run amount possible is pretty much what they sent out. That game came out that you couldn't find it anymore unless you bought it secondhand. It was a super low key release, no promotion for it, like nothing. It was super weird. Yokai Watch 2 Psychic Spectres, Nintendo was still trying to push Yokai Watch in the West at this time. So unfortunately, unsuccessfully so. But this is basically like the Pokemon Emerald or the Pokemon Crystal of Yokai Watch 2. This is like the third definitive version. So I think that's part of why it's a bit more expensive. But by all means, not a hard-to-find game. CIB currently $239, loose even is $147. So I think this is definitely a game that people are buying to play because the loose cartridge is very expensive. And how many expensive 3DS cartridges loose do you know are expensive? Probably not many. But yeah, and it's a bit of a niche series, but like I said, at this time, Nintendo is still pushing Yokai Watch in the West, so it definitely wasn't a low-key, low-print release like the third game was.
This, did it come out later than the other two versions?
Yes, it did.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's pretty fascinating.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, Yokai Watch, a little underrated. I haven't finished the first game, but I've played about half of it, and I thought it was pretty fun, so I think it's kind of slept on for all y'all out there that are looking for a different kind of Pokemon-esque game.
There goes the price, Craig. Now the first game's going to skyrocket because this stupid YouTuber Craig's Game Room is talking about it.
Dude, I hope. That'd be so funny because that game was at $5 below for many months.
Oh, wow.
So it's like that game was disgustingly cheap for a long time.
I did just get one of them. I think I got one of the twos that's cheaper.
Ooh, there you go. Yeah, there's Bony Spears and Fleshy Souls. Fleshy Souls is a disgusting name for a video game. Next up for me, I have Earthbound. Earthbound, obviously it didn't sell that well in the West, but it wasn't, it didn't meet sales expectations, but it wasn't like it sold 10,000 copies or 5,000 copies. It still sold many hundreds of thousands of copies just due to the Nintendo power push from being a first-party Nintendo game and being an RPG in the 90s and all this different stuff. CIB, $2,360, loose $374. This is another game where I feel like legacy has a lot to do with it. People are like, oh, the forgotten Nintendo gem, the forgotten niche cult classic Nintendo series, even though none of that stuff is true anymore. It's like Earthbound is mainstream in my opinion in terms of like people knowing what it is, and it's funny because I do definitely think that this is one of those games where it's like a lot of his fan base hasn't actually played it. But I definitely think that the price of Earthbound is kind of overblown due to legacy, and it does have a coolness factor. That big beautiful box CIB, it is really a sight to behold. It does look cool. It's memorable because there's not a lot of games with that big a box on the Super Nintendo. I think there's only maybe 2 or 3 more. Mario Paint, one of the Bombermans, and maybe something else, but I'm not totally sure. But yeah, it's And this game is very easily accessible now on, Nintendo Switch Online. It was on 3DS, it was on Wii U. So this game is very easily playable digitally now. So it's the fact that it is expensive as it is still, I think it comes down to legacy more than anything else, and just kind of like historically being an expensive and rare game.
I think you're 100% right. There's a lot of price memory on this one for people. There's a lot of people that have only known Earthbound as like
an expensive game
and a rare.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. So I definitely think Earthbound is definitely not worth what it goes for sure. And the last one, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance on GameCube, sitting at $222 right now. This was also first-party Nintendo game that was released pretty much, I think, middle-ish of the GameCube's lifespan, if I remember correctly. Also had a big Nintendo Power push. Fire Emblem wasn't a big success until the 3DS era, but these games didn't do that horribly. They were mildly successful on the Game Boy Advance, and this game still sold many hundreds of thousands of copies. In terms of worldwide, I couldn't tell you exactly, how many it would be statewide because those numbers aren't specific, but hundreds of thousands of copies worldwide. You could assume not all of those are going to be in Japan. So this game still sold quite a lot in America, compared to what people might make you think. And I don't know. I mean, GameCube exclusive, JRPG, kind of has all these the taxes that we like to say that these kind of games have. But $222 is definitely not hard to find in any way, shape, or form. You can buy this any day of the week. You'll probably see it at your local game store if you go later. If you go on eBay, you could buy a copy right now, for probably 7 pages in a row if you wanted to. So, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, great game. My 4th favorite game of all time, so let me put that bias out there. Overpriced.
Craig just told you about 2 of his favorite games ever made and how they're overpriced. Maybe Sonic Adventure 2 is up there for him as well. So there's no bias in this video here.
That's true. I'm talking about a lot of games I like here. So
yeah,
and it's not like me going, I hope the price goes down on these so I could buy them. I own a good handful of these as well. So I just truly think that we're overpaying for games pretty often on the average.
I certainly am. Yeah, Fire Emblem also kind of has that legacy. Like, I jokingly, one of the running jokes with my friend group back in my garage sale days was like, all right, let's go hit this Goodwill. Let's go find that Fire Emblem on GameCube. Like, that was just the game for me that I wanted to find.
That's very specific.
Yeah, and they don't even collect video games, but they know that Fire Emblem was the one.
That's funny. How awesome.
Yeah, I paid like $215 for mine like 3 years ago. It was cheaper than the going rate of like $250.
Yeah, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance has definitely been higher than it is now. So it's not at a low by any means, but it's definitely less than it was a few years ago.
That one plummets with a port, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. If we ever get it, I don't know. It'd be nice if we did, but they've remade a few Fire Emblems throughout the years now, so anything's possible.
Awesome. I think that was a great list, Craig. Great idea for a video.
Yeah, I had fun. I can't believe we made 50 minutes out of this. Good lord.
Oh, wow. We could definitely do another part of this.
Yes. This is definitely a 2-parter.
Thank you for joining me for this episode, as always, my friend.
Yes. Thank you for letting me host, as always, my friend.
Go subscribe to Craig's Game Room. Go subscribe to Craig's Game Room on YouTube. And join the Discord so you can talk to us and tell us how wrong we are. Tell me that $150 is justified for Conker's Bad Fur Day. Go in the chat right now.
Tell me why you would go spend $2,360 on a CIB Earthbound right now. I want you to tell me that that's a normal thing normal people would do.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next month for a couple more collective perspectives.
Take care.